The India Foundation is very pleased to welcome you to the Counter Terrorism Conference 2018. The theme of the conference is Changing Contours of Global Terror. We are proud to welcome distinguished delegates from around the world who will engage in a series of absorbing and fascinating discussions over the next 2 days.
हमारी जो सामाजिक व्यवस्थाएं हैं जिससे शांति पूर्वक हम हर जगह हर देश में एक कानून व्यवस्था को बना करके राज्य शासन प्रशासन जिससे जनता को सुखी कर सकते हैं, उसमें टेररिज्म आतंकवाद एक बहुत बड़ी बाधा है.
Terrorist networks are trying to spread their wings all over the world, but we must be able to nab them and dismantle them. Acts of terrorism cannot be condoned. No pretext, be it political, ideological, or any other, can justify such senseless and horrific acts.
The new face of global terrorism can be most vividly seen in the dramatic change and growth in its infrastructure. The terrorist movement has come a long way from selective recruitment in secret cells to mass recruitment. I would also like to present a momentum to the India Foundation for this successful program.
The Pakistani military and intelligence institutions, fearing the strategic encirclement by India, have been utilizing religious extremism and terrorism to fight India in Kashmir and use the same tool to keep Afghanistan unstable or dependent on Pakistan political support.
Several infrastructural facilities in the region have been deliberately damaged by the Boko Haram insurgents. These include power, education, telecommunication, roads, and other infrastructure. Starting with Al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks, militants have benefited from the fact that the world was entering a cyclical period in which populations lose confidence in political systems.
During the Cold War, terrorism used to be the Marxism. After the end of the Cold War, Islamic fundamentalism became actually the incubator of terrorism.
Ideology, which is the root cause of terrorism and deliberately being confused with a religion, should be properly isolated, identified, and we must all fight it together.
But for the past 20 years, I'm a psychologist. I've been interviewing terrorists, about 600 of them, and looking at their trajectories into and back out of terrorism.
That the retreat of IS from Iraq and Syria, there is a likelihood of a large number of global jihadists and free-floating radicalized mercenaries to gravitate towards this region. The question is, will their entry be facilitated as it was in Syria?
Frankly, if the Americans are going to tell me that this $34 billion has brought us access and influence, my response to that is you can keep this influence because under our watch and on our dime, they've proliferated their arsenal of nuclear weapons. Without this infusion of American funds, and money is fungible, $34 billion, I don't think Pakistan would be the rapid proliferator that it is today.
If you look at Southeast Asia, then you do have a situation where Al-Qaeda and Daesh actually cooperate. If you look at Afghanistan, you do have Al-Qaeda acting on its own and regrouping, refunding, everything.
All these terrorist tanzeems, all these terrorist organizations, they have a complete stranglehold on the narrative. And we need to take this power away from them.
The world over, the civic society has to come together, and we have to have the scholarly warriors now on the virtual world, because that is controlling the mind.
When I talk to some of my counterparts from the Western world, they are amazed that the Islamic terrorism which is being seen in Middle East and in many parts of the world has no profound effect in India. This is because the nature in which we have established our society and our government.
You are playing a game which is far more structured, well within the framework of institutions, but the player of this game has his own rules. So the conflict gets even more humanly aggravated when you have to face this challenge of what responsibilities do you have, what accountability do you have, as opposed to ambush attacks, lone wolves, who do not come under any framework.
Today, take up any terrorist movement and you will find that ideological or religious rootings are being utilized by people to further their own political aims.
Now, of course, over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a hybridization so that a lot of groups have multiple political objectives. They may be revolutionary and global. They may be pan-Islamic and global. They may be revolutionary and sectarian. One could argue that ISIS incorporated all of these. But it's nevertheless important to account for the fact that these groups have different motivations.
Therefore, the focus for all of us has to be on failed and fragile states and regions of failed and fragile states, or potentially fragile areas, to ensure that these are denied to terrorists.
I say that by using the correct assets, methods, strategies, tools, technologies, and unison, working together, we can prevent, if not all, most of the terror attacks.
I'm sure very meaningful and thought-provoking deliberations have taken place during the preceding sessions. There is no doubt that terrorism has become one of the most dominant national security threats of the 21st century across the world. But I think time and resources are on the side of forces of modernization and progress. What is required is strong willpower and concerted global action to defeat the regressive forces.